architectural pattern. Architectural pattern. It is a software architectural pattern. Usually architectural patterns are, I already told you, architectural patterns are same like design patterns, but have a broader scope. Broader scope. They have a broader scope. So already in framework concept I told you. So in an introduction I told you about that. Architectural patterns are same like design patterns, but they have broader scope. They have the broader scope. That means they are responsible for building and controlling the application flow. Actually, so MVC originally, MVC was developed. MVC is a framework developed by TriGue, developed by TriGue in early 1970s. The framework MVC was developed by TriGue and formulated with a language called Smalltalk. And the main concerns are code reusability, and separation concerns. So MVC, the main concern of MVC is to address the issues like code reusability and separation. Very important is every technology. So every technology is using MVC, is using MVC framework. So like Java uses MVC framework by name Spring. PHP uses MVC framework by name Cake PHP, by name Code Igniter. And Perl uses MVC framework by name Catalyst, Dancer, right? And Python uses MVC framework by name Django, Flask, Grok, like that. Ruby uses MVC framework by name Ruby on Rails. And .NET uses MVC framework in ASP.NET MVC. And Angular is using MVC. JavaScript is using MVC framework. It is called JavaScript Spine, and AngularJS, Angular, everywhere it is using this MVC framework. That means client side, right? JavaScript, TypeScript, all these are using these frameworks client side. So the point is, MVC is an architectural pattern, and this MVC architectural pattern is mainly concerned for code reusability and code separation. And so many other features. That means if anyone asks what are the features of MVC framework, what are the key features of MVC? So one of the main feature is code separation. Second feature is code extensibility, and maintainability. Scalability. And scalability is one concept of extensibility only. Unit testing. That means it enables scalability, maintainability, extensibility, code separation, and unit testing. These are the primary things. That means it is easy for testing the application, cleanly separated. So if anyone asks, tell me about two features of MVC, then you should not forget about unit testing. It is the majority of developers, means majority of the uses of MVC is to achieve the concepts like unit testing and code separation. Others, automatically they are the features, but the primary features that we are using MVC for to handle code separation and unit testing. These are the primary things for MVC framework. So many other features are there, but these are all the features. Wherever in server side, client side, wherever we are using MVC framework. So there we have these features, right? And important, actually, what is this MVC framework? So how this works client side, that means client side MVC. What is that client side MVC? Actually, client side MVC is nothing but, so MVC separates component, means application. MVC separates application into three major components. One is model and view and controller. Model, view, controller. Actually, client side, what is model, what is view, and what is controller? It is simple actually. That means client side, what is MVC? What is a model client side? What is a model server side? Actually, server side and client side, these are the basic points you need to know. Actually, MVC framework, it separates into three. So we have a controller. And we have a model. We have controller. And we have model. So model and view. So model and view, right? So what is a model and view and controller? That is the basic thing you need to understand. Because this is the primary framework used by our Angular. Actually, client side model is nothing but it represents data. It represents data. Actually, client side, so data is called as POJO. It is called as POJO. POJO is very important to understand. In many interviews, they ask this question, like, what do you know about POJO? POJO means actually plain old JavaScript objects. POJO means plain old JavaScript objects. POJO means actually the data represents business. Represents business objects. Actually, the data represents business objects. That means earlier, actually POJO uses ORM technique, object relational mapping. Generally, in early days of programming, our data representation will be directly to database. But now in the latest technologies, our data representation will not be directly to database. It will be to business requirements. That means our data logic will write for business, not for database directly. That is important. That means our logic will write for business requirement, not for database.